on relatively short notice, because I only, do you know about the Jewish holidays? They have never ever come on time. It's the most unbelievable thing. They're either late or they're early, and always they're sneaky. You always hear people saying, "Oh, Rosh Hashanah, it snuck up on me." It's like just because Elul was the last page in the Luach, you didn't know that Rosh Hashanah was going to be the next page. Had you dug down for the 50 cents to buy the next year calendar. But so it's snuck up on me, so to speak. Plus, it's been a bit of an active summer. But I wanted to be able to share a little bit of Torah with you on before Rosh Hashanah arrives, and by the time we come back from Israel, I'm afraid that the time will be too short for Rosh Hashanah. In Yirtzeh Hashem, if you're interested, I hope on the Sunday before Yom Kippur to offer a second shir in the high holiday season process. Today's shir roughly bifurcates into two. The video librarians will have to make their peace, because the first half is in a certain sense halachic history, halachic development, and the second is the philosophical strain of understanding halachic practices in different ways, with a certain irritant in the center. So if you, I'm sorry, I to be able to give you these. My little bit of creativity, I put the citations headings in green. I know it was creative because Rena texted me at almost 1 in the morning and said, "Did you really want them to be green?" I said, "Yes, please." Where we will be beginning is with a citation from the Shulchan Aruch of Rav Yosef Karo. If you go looking in the Rambam for a parallel citation, you won't find it, because this entire subject is not codified by the Rambam at all. And as the Shulchan Aruch codifies the practice, the Beis Yosef, written by, of course, the same author as his comments, as he commented on the tour, the Beis Yosef will allow us to see the various components which went into the conclusion of the Shulchan Aruch. What does the Shulchan Aruch say? Please come feel welcome. The Shulchan Aruch in Siman Kakpik Gimel says, "Yehi Adam Rogil le'echol b'Rosh Hashanah," probably Alav, the first day of Rosh Hashanah, Rubya, and this is a list of various plant foods, but Rubya he quickly translates it to Hainu Tilson. Rubya is a bit of a mysterious word. There were different traditions about what the Talmud meant by Rubya. The one which is quoted by the Shulchan Aruch is Tilson, which is generally understood to be fenugreek. And Karsi, Silko, Tamre, and Krok. Karsi is probably leeks, beets, dates, and some form of a squash. So it tells us you should eat these things on the first of Rosh Hashanah. Most have the custom to eat it at night. Some eat it both nights. Some eat it the first night and the first day. Ukisha yochal rubya, And when consuming this, let's say, fenugreek, Yomar Yihi Ratzon Sheyirbu Zichu Yosenu, he should recite the words, may it be God's will that our merits will be many. Karsi Yikrusu Sonenu, that may it be God's will that our enemies be cut off. Silko Yistalku Oivenu, that our enemies may depart. Tamra Yitamu Sonenu. Now you will see the drift in the Shulchan Aruch's rendering of all of these. If you heard the series that I just said, and finally Kra Yikara Gizar Dinenu and Yikru Lefanecha Zechu Yosenu, a double play on words. Number one, with an ayin, may any negative judgment be ripped, and may our merits be read out before you. So can we just classify these for a moment? This will help us a little bit later. What is the tilt? Right? We have these precious items on the table, and they are going to be the vehicles of our aspirations, what it is we would like God to be doing for us. So if you'll notice what, I think I'll bother Buddy. I didn't bother Buddy in a long time. Buddy, what's the drift of these statements? In terms of what they address.
Various ways that we can do tshuva.
Do you see anything here about
symbolic.
tshuva? I'm interested that you're saying that because it's a good Rorschach test. It shows what your mind is occupied with in Elul. But I'm afraid that you are imposing on the text.
Okay.
Because let's go through them again. Yirbu Zechu Yosenu, may we have many merits. May our enemies be cut off. May our enemies depart. May our enemies cease to exist. May any negative judgment be torn. And finally, may our merits be announced, so to speak, before God. Yes, Sonia?
We want peace.
We want peace.
That's what we're
Now we know where your mind is.
Yeah, for sure.
I would say we want the paskudniaks to be taken care of. Three of these, the central ones, are all focused on this notion of the Jewish people as a nation under siege. Sonenu, Oivenu, Sonenu twice actually. So we are a people with enemies. And so 3 of the 6 are about protecting us from external threat. 1 of the 6 is Yikra Gazar Dinenu, if we are to be judged harshly by God, may that be torn up. And 2 pivot on the notion of Zichu Yosenu, which doesn't say, like Buddy, the righteous is thinking we should do tshuva, we should be good. No. Zechu Yosenu means the things which are already in our favor, may they be dominant. Okay? So you see a certain worldview here. Now, the Ramah's voice is heard. The Ramah says, V'yeshno agim le'echol tapuach matok bidvash, something which has already been introduced in the tradition by Rabbi Yaakov Balaturim as an Ashkenazic custom, eating a sweet apple with honey. V'omrim tischadesh aleinu shana mesuka, and we say, may a new year of sweetness be renewed for us. And he says, V'chein noagim. Says the Ramah, we Ashkenazim, indeed, that is our custom. Now, if just to make it clear, there is a good chance that some of the vegetables that are mentioned by the Shulchan Aruch, some of those vegetables may not have been readily available in Ashkenaz. Right? Even as late as the 16th century, England imported apples from France. Right? The first apples of the season to arrive during the reign of Henry VIII were imported from France. So we're talking about a Franco-German community which has decided that even though the species, there's a specific list we'll come to in a moment, what happens if you have to go into Rosh Hashanah without any of these available to the common person? It's quite frightening. So they already were shifting toward apples and honey. V'yesh ochlim rimonim v'omrim narbe zechu yosenu kerimon, and talk about eating pomegranates because of the traditions associated with their multiple seeds. V'noagim lechol basar shamein v'chol minei mesiko. And quoting from the Mordechai in his comments in Yoma, by the way, parenthetically, that paragraph in the Mordechai is his introduction to his rather brief writings on Maseches Yoma. That paragraph in the Mordechai is a treasure, because what the Mordechai there does is he collects all of the customs which have been criticized as superstition and offers a defense in concept and then through specifically. The Mordechai is a Rishon, and you know what, I was going to check his dates just to make sure, and I forgot to do it. Any historians here want to give us a shot on the Mordechai? If you're not a historian and you have an iPhone and you want to check the Mordechai for us, you can do that.
What are the late Baleatos?
What? Sorry?
What are the late Baleatos?
Late Baleatos sounds right. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Sheila. You can stop now because Shian is here. The late Baleatos. So Ashkenaz, but toward the latter part, probably early 14th century, is my guess. Okay. Now, where this begins is with a passage in the Gemara which appears both in Krisus and in Holios. And the passage has a context. The part of the passage which actually makes it into the Shulchan Aruch is the foods of Rosh Hashanah. But the foods of Rosh Hashanah themselves, as introduced in the Talmud, have an eerie context, and we'll share it so that it will be on the table because everyone is going to refer to it. Amar Rabbi, Amar Rav Ami. It's the second paragraph of the green-headed paragraphs. Rav Ami said, Haiman de boy leda imosh choshato ilo. If a person, now note the formulation, iboy leda, he is tormented, he wants to know something about the future. Whether he will, literally whether the year will extend, in other words, whether he will survive through the year. Maisi shrago behalin asara yomin de bein reishata leyoma, the kipuri, v'nitle bebeso de lo noshiv ziko. He should take a candle in the days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and he should light this candle in a house where no wind blows. Obviously, a draft would ruin the process. And then, and I purposely did not cut this Gemara at all, if the candle burns through, in other words, if it continues to burn through all of its fuel, then he may be assured that his year, he will survive through the year. Uman de boy navid iske, uboy de neda imitzlach iske elo. If a person is about to start a new business venture and wants to know whether this business venture will be successful, nirbe tarnigolo, the person should raise a chicken. Ishomin v'shofar neda de mitzlach. And if the chicken thrives and gets fat, then he knows that his enterprise will succeed. And the third case, if a person is contemplating a long journey and he wants to know whether he will, travel was dangerous in those days, and he wants to know whether he will ever get home safely from this journey, What should he do? Says the Gemara, it says, Neo nekum beveso tevaso. He should go and in a closed house. Ichozi bebuo libebuo. Now one of these bebuas is parenthesized, is taken out in our girsa. Neida de osalabese. If he sees a shadow of his shadow. Shadows were associated with angelic accompaniment. That it was an angel keeping you company. If he sees a shadow of his shadow, Neida de osalabese. He knows that he will get home safely from his journey. Says the Gemara Lav Milsahi. And that's not, Rashi says, Lav Milsahi doesn't mean it's nonsense. Lav Milsahi means not recommended. Do not try this at home. Dil mochol shadate, because the results, he may not get the results he wanted. He will, and if he doesn't get a positive result, misra mazale, he himself will spoil his fortune, will spoil his mazel. Of course, there is going to be a great discussion about this last phrase, because this last phrase is saying that either one or all of these procedures is dangerous and may have a negative result. However, what for our purposes begins to be interesting, it's all interesting, the Gemara says, Amar Abaye, and with this Abaye said, Hashto de Amrat, Simona Milsahi. Now that you have confirmed the concept that a symbolic act, Simona, a sign, has substance, has validity, now that you have confirmed this concept, how did you confirm it? You confirm, well, there's two ways to read this Gemara. I was a little cheap with the paper. Just before this, the Gemara says that the kings of Israel, quotes a Baraita, that the kings of Israel were anointed by a river so that it was an omen that their rain should flow like the river, should have an extended future. So what is Abaya referring to? So some traditions will say that he's referring to the precedent of doing this on behalf of the kings of Israel, which actually made it to law. It was codified as a Baraita. Others say that it is the lessons of Rav Ami that Abaya is referring to. Either way, he says, Yehirogil inish lemecha reishata krov berubya karsi silfa v'tamre. One should accustom himself on Rosh Hashanah to eat this list of foods which are mentioned in the Shulchan Aruch. Yes, Judy.
Question, yes. Isn't this superstition, and superstition possibly, I'm not the one to blame these Chachamim Zakanim, but dare I say bordering on Avodah Zarah?
Judy, dear,
my chutzpah.
let me just say, not only are you have one of the least chutzpahdik people I know, but you don't realize
Right.
you have just joined the choir of some of the greatest Gedolei Israel, among them quite possibly the Rambam himself, who does not even mention this Gemara, and three others that we will discuss, who in a few minutes will undertake exactly the question. If the Chumash tells us, we don't have to go further than the Chumash. The Chumash tells us in Parsas Kedoshim that you're not allowed necromancy and things to try to predict the future are not really the way to go. Many would understand this also as related to the verse which is kind of the crown jewel of yesterday's Torah reading, Tomim tiya im Hashem Elokecho, you shall go with perfect faith with the Lord your God. In other words, don't look for control. So you are in excellent company. You will, however, still suffer some sort of penalty for having thrown my shear out of order because you predicted the question a little early, but I can hardly I can hardly blame your impatience, which you share with the Marshaw and other holy people. Yes, John?
I'm glad Judy spoke up so I didn't have to. In
There's still
addition,
time.
It's a bit arrogant to think that I was supposed to have these symbols for me, or anyone to think, well, who am I to have these things happen?
So you're approaching it from a slightly different angle, and that says, well, maybe there are heavenly signs about the fortunes of, I don't know, great prophets, great kings, when the prophets want to grab a hold of an almond, branch, so it's a nevuah. But average Joe Schmo, who's about, his brother-in-law wants to go into a new business selling those socks that have places for your toes, right? He's going to start growing the chicken. The chicken cares about him and Irving. So the notion that hashgacha pratis, that's God's particular interest and influence, extends to such a capillary level that everybody is entitled to, conduct this kind of symbolic dialogue. Okay, that's a very good question as well. What I would like to do first, since I promised you a shiur in 2 parts, but I promised to give plenty of time to Judy and Chuck's portion of it, is to note that if all you knew was this Gemara, Paula, you are now armed with Abaya's Gemara. Abaya says, Simona Milsa, I have some news. You're making dinner Rosh Hashanah. Plan to include all of these things, rubia and karsi and silka and tamri. You should make sure they're all on your menu. Okay, enough said. What if we only had Abaya? What was Abaya intending? What would Rosh Hashanah Eve look like or include? If we were the equivalent of Talmudic Karaites, you're just going to be literal. What would it have been? How do you get the good luck? Good luck is a very important thing. I think a little more excitement here and the creativity is in it. It sounds from Abaya.
What did you say again?
What?
I don't understand what Abaya said.
Abaya says, based on something in the Gemara before, either Rav Ami or the Tosefta that I didn't mention, we now know that the principle of Simona Milsa, that symbolic action, has validity. Based on that, you should include the following items in your Rosh Hashanah menu. I should say, for cantor's sake, Rashi here says that these items share one of 2 qualities. Either they grow very fast and ostensibly tall, or they're sweet. And these are 2 qualities that we hope will be with us in the new year, that we should grow great in stature, etc., and that the year should be filled with sweetness. How does the simon work? What do?
You have to eat it.
You would eat it. Oh, thank God you came today. I'm so grateful. Abaya simply suggests that we ingest them. And it is not crazy, because the idea that we acquire the characteristics of things we eat has a wonderful tradition. And you don't even have to go to cannibalism for that. Even in our tradition, many of the Tamei HaMitzvos discussions about the laws of kashrus involve the idea that a Jew who is raised for sensitivity and gentleness does not eat, for example, birds of prey, whose nature is rapacious, or carnivorous animals who kill, right? So the idea that and that's why, for example, there is sensitivity even when you're talking about small children who are not obligated in mitzvah observance per se, that they also shouldn't eat unkosher food because the notion that it somehow influences the neshama. Kashrus, in this way of thinking, is a system. It is a diet intended to produce a holy neshama. So the idea of eating something and thereby imbibing its characteristics is not crazy. But the Shulchan Aruch, as soon as he mentions you should eat these, he goes on and says, Yomar yihi rotzon sheyirbu yizichu yoseinu. He appends a tagline. May it be your will. And if you look a little bit further on the page, what you will see is the introduction here. Look, you see on the fourth line he quotes Rashi, and he says these things grow in a certain way, or they're sweet. Then he goes on, and in terms of Umasha Kosav Rubio Yirbu Zichu Yosenu, that is based on a Mordechai, this time in Rosh Hashanah, where he quotes the custom of Rav Hai Gaon, Lomar al kol davar v'davar ke'ein masha kosav Rabbeinu. That first of all, there is the theory, why were these things chosen? Not, as Rashi said, because of their intrinsic characteristics, but because of their name. That their name symbolizes something. Are you clear where we're moving?
Yeah, but
Right?
what it seems to me is that there's two parts of Rosh Hashanah. That half of it is the part that's that it's real, that you know what it is, you can put your hands onto it. But the other part is the teshuvah. So it's both of those things.
So Bella, darling, not from today do I love you. I'm going to come to your approach. Because you notice, and this is where poor Buddy with his holiness, Buddy says, Rosh Hashanah, I want to talk about truth. He says, Rabbi, with all due respect, I didn't come out early on a Sunday morning of a day where they're playing football to talk about fenugreek. I don't even know what fenugreek is. Right? I think it was half the people who were trying to get a hold of Cyprus. The other whole side with the Fenu Turks. So they were there. I don't know. But Bella has mentioned, because probably you suggested it, that Rosh Hashanah is about Teshuvah. It may be, but nothing here, I understand, but nothing in this discussion has yet raised the idea of Teshuvah. There is nothing here which relates to making the person better. All of this seems to be on the God side. How to get God to do what we hope He will do for us in the new year. I want to make that clear. And so far in the methodology, one is we want God, we're going to eat these things, and Rashi says, well, because you eat them, their qualities will be your qualities. The second concept is that it is not their intrinsic qualities, but rather it is the names that are with them that's how they made the list, and each one, Riboy, etc., all the plays on it. But what Rav Hai Gaon introduces is, Rav Hai Gaon introduces the words Yehi Ratzon. He says it's not enough to eat things that have this name. Rather, there has to be an articulate mention. So Rav Hai Gaon is actually a kind of a bridge to what will be the next element that the Beis Yosef is going to mention. Rav Hai Gaon says we mention the names in the context of Yehi Ratzon, may it be your will. The Abu Dram, whom the Beis Yosef now quotes, I put him in bold, says, Kosav Kedivre HaMordechai, the Kosav Od, Sheyesh Omrim Beloshon Tefillah. the first time we are mentioning the concept of tefillah. In other words, you see there has been a kind of a accretion, moving the concept of symbolic act, where just by eating fenugreek something good will happen, moving that toward the idea of tefillah, where the Abu Dram, you probably wondered about this. Whoever told you could mention the Shem Shamayim? The Abu Dram in the Beis Yosef is the first one who says that Yiratzon milfanecha Hashem Elokeinu ve'Elokei Avoseinu sheyikru lefanecha zichu yoseinu v'sheyikra gzar dineinu. And so all of a sudden, from being a simple, the fact of their name, to Rav Hai Gaon's Yehi Ratzon, may it be your will, to the Abu Dram's fully elaborated tefillah, using the Lashon tefillah, that it's an actual prayer. So you see, Bella, what has actually happened is that the simonim on the table have been, in a sense, co-opted by the great work of Rosh Hashanah, which is primarily going to be in the day. They have been drawn, if you will, by a kind of magnetism. They have been drawn to the sun of tefillah, to the idea of worship.
How do we feel about that?
Well, you know, I'm not conducting a poll of feelings yet. I am noting a process. You will see how we feel about it on the second side of the page. Furthermore, yes?
I think this is very educational.
Yeah.
As any elementary school teacher knows, when you're teaching something, you want to show something to make the students, the children, interested. So the Yikar, the most important thing is what we said. To get us into it, we have these symbols.
Okay. I will say that after experiential learning, after the fact, you are correct. But when Abaya puts it in the context of fattening the chicken to find out if your business is going to succeed, it is clearly that at an early point in Jewish history, Simona Milsahi was not show and tell. It was considered to have real meaning, real power. Right? The expansions that we see here, they're going to be really three expansions. One is that the Tur and others are going to make room for other kinds of foods with other kinds of messages. The Shulchan Aruch didn't do that, but by the time we come to the Ramah, we're making room for the apple and honey. Actually, I think in the next paragraph in the Shulchan Aruch, the Maram Rottenberg is quoted, I don't recall whether it was the Mechaber or the Ramah, talking about eating the head of a sheep. No, fish were for wimps. The real guys did the head of a sheep. One time someone was learning Shechita, offered me, would you like the head of a sheep?
Thought it was a fish.
For what? Well, we do fish because we say, all right, a fish head we could take. But when a head of, there are people who still do it, the head of a sheep appears on your table. You have a problem. I would tend to set a place for him and offer him some compote at the end, but I'm not ready. I'm a little too sheepish for that. Okay. Oh, bad. What we also see is a tradition. So we see that there was an expansive element. Once we got to the point that these things were vehicles for prayer. Vehicle for prayer allowed us to move to other things. As long as the prayer made sense, the other things could be vehicles. Other things could be vehicles as well. And finally, just mentioning a tradition that the Magen Avraham mentions, an even more expansive one, that once these prayers were based upon the names of things, you could even move into the vernacular for your plays on words. And so the famous one is people ate carrots because carrots in Yiddish were called meren.
Oh, that's right.
But it went so far as there were teachers, I was told, in, I think someone quoted someone who used to eat Tag or Shalamis, one of the girls' schools, said that they should eat celery so that they should have a good salary. I mean, they were given, these were not jokes. These were not jokes. These were, once the Magen Avraham gives his permission to move into the vernacular in search of these plays on words, all right, so for the same money it could be carrots. Okay. Now as we turn over the page, the cases that we dealt with disturbed Judah. Of the sources whom we're going to look at, the one who is inevitably closest to our modern rationalist way of thinking is the Meiri. The Meiri is going to be interesting on several levels. The Meiri, number one, is not a magical thinker. Number two, the Meiri, and we know this from a number of different areas of his thought, the Meiri did not conduct himself with a worldview that the Jew lived in the center of a hostile circle and that we were surrounded constantly by our enemies. So this whole Gemara is a problem for the Meiri. So the Meiri in Beis HaBechira says, Harbe Devarim Hutru Lifamim Shein Domim Lenichush V'lo Miderech Nichush Chalilo Elo Derech Simon Le'orer Bo Levavo Lehanhaga Tova. That these things are not done as predictive necromancy, although they look like they are, trying to tell the fortune telling. Rather, what is their purpose? It is the lofty purpose. It is merely Simon. This time, he uses this symbolic. It doesn't mean that that this is symbolic action, that moving in the micro can affect the micro. It means it is symbolic of a concept. In order to stir the heart, Bella, here we go, lehanhoga tova, to behave well. V'hu she'omru, litain al shulchenu b'lei Rosh Hashanah, these various species, Karubia, Karsi, Silka, Tamri, shehein inyonom mehem, some of them shegedelim maher, they grow quickly, umehem shegidloson ole harbe, or they reach high, ukedei shaloli koshel bohem lasos derech nichush, and in order to defend lest you use these things improperly. In other words, the Meiri is saying, yes, there is such tradition, but yes, as well, there is the danger that you will misunderstand it. You will think that you are making your year better with your fenugreek, as opposed to internalizing its lesson. Because of that, tiknu lomar aleim divarim hamaorim bari litshuva. The prayers that you are to recite over them are meant to awaken you. And the Meiri's language is very hard. Kidei shelo likoshel bohem. For the Meiri, the movement from simply ingesting qualities to the point where they have become, like the Abudram, actual tefillah, for the Meiri, this is not a casual development. For Meiri, this is actually a protective fence lest you misuse this Gemara. And notice how he comes out. Only in the Korah, when you eat the gourd, Yikra'u zichu yosenu, may our merits be read out. Rubio Yirbu Tzidkosenu. It doesn't say may our merits, but rather may our acts of righteousness increase. Ubikarsi Yikarsu Sonenu. This one you couldn't get. May our enemies get cut off. But look at who the Meiri's enemies are. If you were living in the Provence, who would your enemies be, Sonia?
The Germans.
Well, in Provence, it's still French. Probably the bishop, the archbishop, the cardinal, the count of Monte Cristo. Somebody there you'd think of, oh yeah, an anti-Semit. Ritzono Lomar, not for the Meiri. Sone HaNefesh, the enemies of our spirit. V'heim ha'avonos. It is our sins that are the enemy, says the Meiri. Vasilka yistalku avonenu, may our sins be removed, and in the dates yitamu chatoenu, may our sins cease, ukayotse bo'elu. And like all of these, then he goes on to the little discussion about whether it's really fenugreek or some kind of bean. And he says, as far as the other Gemara is concerned, this works fine for Abaya's Simonim. But he goes on and he reads that Gemara in Krisus that we just mentioned. Last line, Hine Omar al Kulam, the Lav Milsai. Says the Meiri, he reads the Gemara very differently. Our Gemara, as the Tur read our Gemara, as other Rishonim read the Gemara, the Lav Milsahi, that last thing, remember where Rashi says, don't try this at home? Is only on the person setting out for a journey. The person who wants to know about his year, the person who wants to know about his new business enterprise. Rashi's fine with that. Play with your chicken, play with your candle. Simona Milsai. And Abaya says yes, and we're going to extend this to Rosh Hashanah. The Meiri says no. The Meiri says the Gemara itself has rejected all of those three methodologies, and the only use we have for Abaya's menu is to get us all to the Madrega of the great bees, Bella and Buddy, that what you should be thinking about at night is not how to manipulate your fortunes, but how to do tshuva. And the only real enemy for the Meiri is my sins. My own self-destructive impulses. That is the enemy. However, I should just tell you that Jewish history did not always exclusively include people like the Meiri and Judy. There were other thinkers as well. One of those who is at the most extreme end is the Maharal of Prague. The Maharal of Prague, yes, Shem.
Sorry, can we just read, using the Meiri, the Gemara, the Gemara. So
well, the Gemara says.
No, just so the Lat Miltahi, right?
Right.
That's everything above, everything you brought about.
Right, from Rav Ami, everything above.
Okay. Amar Rabbi,
It's dangerous.
Simana Miltahi.
So if Rabbi says Simona Milsa, he's not going to that. He's going to the Gemara before that.
Oh, so
that says
that.
we anoint the king at the riverbank. In other words, that Abaya is not paying attention to any of those things of Rav Ami, but rather reverting to the earlier source. The Maharal of Prague is unapologetic. He feels that folks like the Meiri, who almost come off as apologists for what seems to have been the original meaning, are simply incorrect. He says, what's the opposite? The opposite for the Maharal is, if you don't believe in these things, it means that you believe that there's no such thing as directed destiny. there's no such thing as hashgacha pratis. Top of the paragraph, mi she'eino sein makom v'lo yamin ladavar zeh, someone who has no place in his ideology and doesn't believe in this, rak she'inyan ha'odam noheg al pi teva, but that human beings are subject to the laws of nature alone, davar zeh sichlus, this is foolishness. Ki roi ha'odam bifrat she'eh hanagaso lo kumo behemo she'ein mazal lebehemo. To be human, Chuck, this is addressing your question. To be human means that we are not animals. Animals have no individuated destiny. But part of being, not of being for the Maral, not of being a tzaddik, not of being a navi, not of being a melech, part of being a human. He doesn't even make this contingent upon being Jewish. Part of being human is that the conduct of our faith is not like that of the animal. Hanogas, the end of that line, Hanogas ha'odom hi ruchanis ki yesh lo mazal. The human life is conducted where spirituality is real. The kevon sheyesh lo mazal, because this notion of destiny applies, hamazal nire al yedei simon. Destiny is made manifest, made visible through symbolic gestures. V'kach moil simon she'osa lemata sheyeh dovek ha'odom b'tov lemala. Our actions here allow us to be somehow linked, joined with benefits that come from above, because man is not an animal. And he says in these, and he goes on and he says that the use of the chicken, what's another word for chicken? Says, for those of you who say Birchas HaShachar?
Tarnagol.
No, not Sefli, but he's also, I don't know. He's also called a gever. I don't know why I was going to that bracha. That's irrelevant. The word for rooster is a gever. So the notion of, and also because the chicken says he was associated with the concept of zrizus. They're always busy. You know, chickens are always, chickens always remind me of Jews at a shmorg. They're always pecking around, looking here and there. Ooh, that looks good. Ooh, right? So the idea that they are somehow can be used as a mirror for a person's destiny. He says even the candle, because Ner Hashem Nishmas Adam, that the spirit of man is compared, is God's candle, right? So these symbols are not, he says, arbitrarily chosen. How dare you, make light of them? And furthermore, he finds in them great symbolism. In one of the tracks that we're always interested in the high holidays, as you see in the fourth line, "V'ani omer ki elu devarim nizkaru bohem zechus avos." That in these elements, in the foods of Abaya, there are traits of each of the avos. And first he goes through 5, and then he says the first 3 are the most important, but it's very interesting. His connection to each of these, he speaks about Abraham as representing the power of growth, and Yitzchak as the blessings that come to the world, and Yaakov the capacity to strive against the enemy. Yaakov wrestles with the angel. But then he goes on further and he speaks about the Tzaddik Katomar Yifroch, that one of the 5 symbols represents the righteous people of the world. And the last, he says, most interesting, he says that the selek, that which pushes aside sin, represents the merit in our midst of Balei Tshuva, of those who are already veterans of the power of the process of Tshuva. Each of these 5 simonim, so to speak, accesses a source of positive merit with which the Jews go before HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now when he says it that way, it's a little harder to ignore. It's a little hard to marginalize him as a primitive, because the whole next day is going to be about the search for Zchus Avos. The ability to connect ourselves with Zchus Avos, with the merit of the patriarchs. Oh, all of a sudden, excuse me, Simonim is not just prayer for the Maharal. Simonim is the active connection between ourselves and positive benevolent powers that are there for us, and which our symbolic seizing of them below actually has an active, almost instrumental role in bringing them to our merit. How's that for? I mean, no one gets upset when we say that the shofar is reminiscent of the shofar from the ram of the Akedah. No one gets nervous about that. So eat your fenugreek and behave yourself. The Maharsha is somewhere between what I would describe the instrumentalist approach of the Maharal and what I would call the philosophical approach of the Meiri. The Maharsha is somewhere in between, and we'll conclude our thinking with the Maharsha. The Maharsha says, come and read with me again the Gemara in Krisus. There's something in the Gemara in Krisus which is very strange. No doubt the Chazan picked this up. When it says, if you're starting a business, it says you should fatten a chicken. It says, and if the chicken gets fat, your business will succeed. What is missing in all of these formulations? What does the Gemara, what does Rabbi Ami never say?
It doesn't say.
What?
The negative.
Exactly. The negative is missing in each formulation. He never says, if your candle blows out, if your chicken drops dead, right? If you have no shadow, then you forget it. Crawl into bed, you're doomed. And Maharsha says no. Maharsha says, we only use simonim. We only recognize their efficacy on the positive side, on the optimistic side. Why? He has a very interesting idea. He tells us that when the Ribono Shel Olam decides to send a bracha, he never reneges. A bracha is never withdrawn. And so, if you have received a sign, a simon, that it will go well, one can be confident. What if you have not gotten the sign yet? What if there's no simon? What if your chicken's not doing that great? He says, what does that mean? It means that things are still pending. Because whereas Ribono Shel Olam's goodness is never withdrawn, the Ribono Shel Olam's negative manifestation in our world, the things that we fear, they are always pending the possibility of our tshuva. They are never a foregone conclusion. And so, if the individual has not seen a simon bracha, has not seen the symbol of confidence in blessing, that individual is not supposed to fold up and run away. And so he begins, it seems he reads the Gemara B'Lav Milsai. The reason we don't encourage people to do things is because they will misunderstand the absence of the good omen. That if the candle blows out, they will curl up, and he says, and the language of the Gemara is chol shadate, which means you will become depressed and hopeless and negative, and then umisra mazale. Your fate will not be turned to the negative because of the omen. It will be turned because you lost hope. Because you didn't recognize that the Ribono Shel Olam Ki'ilu never says no. Sometimes he says not yet. And that to understand his answer as not yet is not, the answer is not intended to make you run and crawl into bed and pull your covers over your head and give up. It's intended to make it good. Some action is needed on our part to reverse the possibility. And so for the Marsha, we on the night of Rosh Hashanah, even if we understand before the Yehi Ratzon, the function of eating the Simonim Milsa is that if there is something that can come to us as the promise of the good, we may eat it and be confirmed and happy in our confidence. And just in case, we say Yehi Ratzon Lifnei Avinu Shalash Yehi Ratzon Fanecha Hashem Elokeinu V'Elokei Avoseinu Shenar B'Zechu Yoseinu. That in case the bracha for the new year has not yet been ordained, may we have the power to increase our righteousness so that we can release the bracha that the Ribono Shel Olam, with all his heart, wants to give us in the coming year. So we're going to have to pause there, dears, because I unfortunately have to get an unveiling shortly. I didn't begin with it, but I want to finish with thanking Sharon so much for opening this Makom Torah
Yes,
to
I have
us.
one question.
Yes,
Is the kapara of Yom Kippur, the chicken, is that the next step of this?
actually the next step is probably Tashlich,
Yes.
and then is Kapparas. They are all sort of out of the same tradition.
No, but especially because we already talked about the chicken for different reasons.
Yeah,
Food.
chickens were popular animals for predictions. Okay, and I also very much thank you so much, Rena, for the copy, for the recording, and to my beloved SDC for gathering us together. I want to wish all of you and each of you and everyone that you love, Klal Yisrael, should be a ksiva v'chasima tova, alter l'chaim tovim.